Yeah, former Cowboy news today. McCarthy-level interest is picking up in Pittsburgh, but it's declining in Green Bay for a former Cowboys. Trayvon Diggs has been released, cut, waived, put on waivers. How do you say that exactly anyway?
Yeah, they released him.
They released him.
Yeah, he's gone.
So,
might re-sign him, though, right?
They could.
If he clears and all that stuff like that, maybe at a lower contract.
I could see that.
They paid $470,000 for him for 1 week, though, right?
Yeah, did the Cowboys a little bit of a favor, and I don't know, maybe Chicago will want him, but I think right now the most important thing for Trayvon Diggs is just for him to try to see how much athleticism he can reclaim in this offseason. I think Jerry did a really good job of explaining, what made him successful, and that ability to put his foot in the ground and drive on the football has just dissipated to the extent that he can't get away playing corner the way that he did pre-injury. Now, you talk about his knee injuries, and the second one was basically the microfracture. And that's real difficult. They're having to regrow your cartilage inside of your knee, and it is very much within reason that 13 months later, 14 months later, it's just not enough time has elapsed. So I'm not going to rule it out, but I think no team is going to bet on Diggs at this point. He should have just let the season maybe play out and not go to Green Bay, because then he could have at least made the argument that the Cowboys just didn't like him. Now that you've gone to Green Bay and failed to the extent there, they don't see your contract as being worth it. He's got to do a prove a deal. Maybe an incentive-rich contract like what Asante Samuel Jr. just got, or even less, could be in the cards for him. Okay, the Titans made Niners defensive coordinator Robert Saleh their new head coach. Did a heck of a job there coaching the defense in San Francisco. After leaving the Jets, they went from top 5 to bottom 10 defense. So his stock has very much been on the rise. But the talk among Cowboys bloggers, and I have this story here at bloggingtheboys.com, is that your current defensive line coach, Aaron Whitecotton, has worked with Saleh in the past, not only with the Jets. They were both part of Gus Bradley's staff in Jacksonville from 2014 to 2016 when Saleh was the linebackers coach and Whitecotton was just getting started as a D-line assistant. When Saleh left to become the Niners DC, Whitecotton ended up in Buffalo for a few years, but Saleh brought him on staff in 2020, and then Whitecotton followed him to New York the following year, so there's already been a point where after a time apart, they started working together again, which makes you think that their relationship is more than just coincidental. At one point, at least, Saleh liked what Whitecotton brought to the table. At least two or three times he did. So what do you guys think? Would that be exciting to you to go looking for a new defensive line coach as well, or do you think you want to hang on to Whitecotton?
I would like Aaron Whitecotton to stay here. I think that it's hard to judge from a year ago. Look, I mean, I know, Brian, you've used the phrase like Quinnen Williams could roll out of bed and be good, and he could be, but I do think that he has seen the most success in his career, and Whitecotton changing the stance, that type of stuff. Like, he seems to really like him, but I'm also totally cool if you get a new defensive coordinator that kind of wants to put his own defensive line coach and linebackers coach and secondaries coach in place. Fine. I think that you should have people around you that you trust, and maybe whoever is hired will like Aaron Whitecotton and he sticks around. But I'm pretty indifferent because you did not see really the success, and if anything, you saw regression with some players along the defensive line last year, and I don't know how much to really put that blame onto Aaron Whitecotton or not.
All right, up next here on the C Note. Let's stay with Blogging the Boys. Headline, Jonathan Gannon would be a disastrous defensive coordinator hire for the Cowboys. This is from David Howman. I thought it was a terrific article. He gave you 8 bullet points on why Gannon's not the guy. And I guess I've just been kind of looking at this but the longer this goes without another candidate emerging, if you're waiting for Leonard, you're not going to win an auction for a guy. I feel like they're building contingencies right now for what happens and if they don't get Leonard. And if the Giants really want him, then I would expect Gannon to end up with the New York Giants. So to me, it's actually pretty realistic the Cowboys could hire Gannon right now. And after so much thumbs down type of reaction to this, it's shocking, but he worked with Clay Adams, and he's a former head coach, and Jerry wouldn't have to pay his salary, so this thing actually checks quite a bit of boxes. So as I'm making my way through this David Howman article, I'm like, man, do you think these criticisms are fair or unfair? Eberflus clone? Is that realistic?
Well, he's got Zimmer ties as well. I don't know that he's an Eberflus clone. I think that he certainly has worked under Eberflus and has some similar ties to the way that he calls defense, but I don't know about a clone. I do think some of the things in which he does is similar, though, and maybe that's what they're looking for with continuity. But it's the least exciting hire, in my opinion, to go with him. I think he's on really a downward trend in his career. I mean, he really kind of needs to, I think, resell himself.
Chronic in-game inflexibility, repeatedly criticized for poor adjustments, especially late in games, as the fourth quarter and overtime thing was in there. Defensive results masked by offensive help, making the case that when he was with Philadelphia and they were 2nd and 10th in total defense in those 2 years, your offensive success rate was so good, you were putting the opposition in must-pass situations, so even his analytics are being questioned. Obviously, the Arizona tenure was a massive failure. That one is without a doubt. They ranked 28th in EPA per play across his head coaching tenure. It's a hell of a hit piece. I mean, you were 3-14 in 1 year and 4-13 in another, with some massive losing streaks inside of those. I could definitely see how hiring Jonathan Gannon as a head coach will probably not be something that anybody considers for a long time. What do you think about? Yeah, Brian?
The thing that I think that, if you go back and maybe look at Gannon in some of the things, and I'm not saying it's all terrible, but he does. If you're thinking he's similar to Eberflus, he's really not.
Okay.
And Eberflus is more of a 4-man front guy. Gannon more of a 5-man front. If you look at what they do, if you do what they do, he plays with like three safeties. If something's big, that Flus doesn't play with the 3 safety look. You also in a situation, I think he was top 15 in disguised coverages too.
Okay.
That's something that Flus ain't really big on either. So if you're comparing him to Flus that way, I mean, I've heard people, listen, I've talked to some coaches about this guy. He's the one that gets the least amount of praise of the coaches that potentially Dallas is talking to.
Yeah.
But if you're saying that he's the same as Eberflus,
that's not true.
That's not true, because he does. He plays more 5-man fronts. He disguises coverages more, and he plays with more safeties.
I think the Flus comparison they were making was a lot of zone.
It is a lot of zone.
Yeah. But that's just one component of how
he's kind of married the Zimmer and Eberflus styles together, and that's where you start to get more of the disguised coverages and heck, I mean, Dan Quinn would even be an example of where you start to see more 3 safeties on the field together.
Yeah, we did see quite a bit of that.
That
Dan
dime,
Quinn
he played a lot
that.
of dime. That stuff that's what Dan was playing. I mean, nobody played more dime Dan's last year than the Cowboys.
He was the original Danny Dimes.
He was. Okay, so what do you guys think about the Drew Petzing thing, where they're saying in Arizona he basically chose loyalty to his staff instead of being able to keep his job if he'd agreed to move on from Drew Petzing? I mean, in some ways I like the loyalty, but in others maybe the stubbornness.
He might have had enough.
Yeah, maybe he was trying to get himself fired.
Yeah, he might have been in a situation where I've had enough of this crap. I mean, I know being a head coach there's only 32 of these jobs, but he's also probably looking at it like, I need to get the hell out of here. It's going to happen one day or another.
The weirdest thing is that the fine for striking the player after the fumble, that was just bizarre. And I think we should pay attention to those kind of things, because these coaches, they value the calmness and the ability to communicate under fire. And I feel like if you have a moment like that, it's not necessarily a one-off. It's a moment where, a significant piece of your nature that you would rather the public not see is being exposed, and I think you should, pay attention to that. So in a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense, but I think the Jerry wanting a former head coach and the fact that he worked with Clayton Adams, this seems to unfortunately be kind of realistic. The idea of playing the NFC West next year is making headlines. Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Cowboys 2026 opponents include several playoff teams. This might be the toughest division in the NFL right now, with Seattle, San Francisco, and the Rams.
For sure.
3 teams in the Final Four in the NFC.
And then you got the AFC South. They could have had 3 playoff teams as well. I don't know how tough the Colts are going to be next year. The Titans probably still will not be very tough. So you get one win. But I mean, even
Bob
in the
Saleh's there now, right, with the Titans?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Maybe they'll have a defensive turnaround.
Yeah.
But if you consider the NFC West alone and Arizona's your House of Horrors team, no matter where that game is, the Cardinals are the number one cursed opponent for the Cowboys, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they certainly have been a team that has had
Denver.
Well, yes, unfortunately, you don't have to play Denver as much, but those two are definitely up there.